I want you to close your eyes for a second. Seriously, just for a moment.
Yeah?
I want you to transport yourself back in time.
Okay.
It is March 1933. You are walking down a busy street in a major American city, Chicago, New York, maybe Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
It's cold, the wind is cutting through your coat, and everything feels a little gray.
And it's quiet. That's the thing people always forget when they picture this time.
Oh, yeah.
Factories aren't humming. Construction sites are silent. The noise of industry has just, it stopped.
Exactly. And as you walk, look at the people passing you. Count them. 1, 2, 3. That fourth person.
No job.
They have no job. They have nowhere to go. They've likely been wearing those same clothes for a week.
Wow.
Now look at the buildings. You pass a bank. It has grand marble columns and it looks totally solid.
But it isn't.
But the doors are locked. There are iron bars across the entrance. And inside that vault, maybe, are your family's entire life savings, every dollar you worked for.
And you can't get it.
You can't get to it. It's trapped.
It is a terrifying image. And if we zoom out from the city to the countryside, the logic of the world seems to have broken down completely.
Right.
You might see farmers burning their own corn in their stoves.
Burning food. Why?
Because the price of corn had dropped so low, it's actually cheaper to burn it for heat than to sell it to buy coal.
So you have people starving in the cities and farmers burning food in the country.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
The feeling in the air isn't just sadness or poverty. It is panic.
Absolute panic. The system has failed. But then you go home, you turn on the radio, and through the static you hear a voice.
A very particular voice.
It's calm, it's aristocratic, but intimate. And it says this: the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
That voice, of course, belonged to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And that moment, March 1933, wasn't just a bad economic term. It was the moment the United States almost collapsed.
Welcome back to class, everyone. I'm Mr. Host.
And I'm his expert.
And today, we are doing a deep dive into that man, FDR, and the massive, chaotic, and, well, revolutionary experiment he launched called the New Deal.
This is arguably the most pivotal moment in 20th century American domestic history.
That's a big claim.
It is. This is the moment where the United States government completely rewrote its job description. Before this, the government was like a distant relative you saw once in a while at a post office.
Right.
After this, the government moved into your living room, checked your bank account, and promised to take care of you when you got old.
It's a massive shift. And our mission today is to figure out how on earth that happened. We're going to look at the man himself, the absolute alphabet soup of agencies he created,
Oh, get ready for some acronyms.
the fierce opposition he faced, and the big question, did it actually work, or was it just a lot of noise and spending?
It's a complicated legacy. But to understand the New Deal, you can't just start with FDR. You have to understand the disaster he walked into.
Absolutely.
We have to talk about the election in 1932 and the man he replaced.
Herbert. Poor Herbert Hoover. History has not been kind to this man.
No, it is not.
In the blue corner, we have the challenger, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But in the red corner, the incumbent, Hoover. Now, looking at the sources, Hoover wasn't a bad guy, right? He was actually a brilliant administrator before this.
He was brilliant, a world-class engineer, a humanitarian who fed millions in Europe after World War I. He was a very capable man.
So what went wrong?
He was intellectually handcuffed to a specific economic philosophy called classical liberalism.
That sounds fancy. Let's break that down for the class. What does classical liberalism mean in the context of 1932?
It's basically the idea that the economy is a force of nature, like the weather. The government should stay out of it.
Hands off.
Completely hands-off. Laissez-faire. Hoover believed that businesses should regulate themselves. He thought if the government got involved, giving money to people, interfering with prices, it would ruin the natural flow of the market and actually make things worse.
So while people are starving and banks are closing, Hoover is standing there sort of paralyzed by his own philosophy.
Essentially, he played what we call confidence economics. He truly believed that the Depression was just a psychological funk.
The funk.
Yeah, he kept saying phrases like, prosperity is right around the corner.
Prosperity is right around the corner.
He thought if he just kept smiling and saying things were fine, businesses would start hiring again. He was trying to talk the country out of a depression.
Imagine hearing that when you haven't eaten a proper meal in 3 days. It must have felt insulting.
It made him look incredibly out of touch. There were Hoovervilles, shanty towns made of cardboard popping up in parks.
Right.
People called newspapers Hoover blankets. And empty pockets turned inside out were Hoover flags. Americans felt like he just didn't get it.
And then sweeping onto the stage, you have FDR. Now, here's the irony that always gets me. On paper, FDR shouldn't have been the man of the people.
Not even close. He wasn't a working-class hero.
He was American royalty, born in Hyde Park, New York, to a very wealthy family, went to Harvard. He was the cousin of Teddy Roosevelt.
And he spoke with that transatlantic accent that sounded like an old movie star. He was, as they say, to the manner born.
So how does a guy like that connect with a factory worker in Detroit or a farmer in Oklahoma? How does that happen?
Because something happened to FDR that changed him profoundly. In 1921, at the age of 39, he contracted polio.
This is such a key part of his psychology. He went from being this vigorous, athletic, kind of arrogant young man
Very much.
to being paralyzed from the waist down almost overnight.
And we have to remember, in the 1930s, disability was seen very differently. It was often viewed as a weakness or a disqualification for leadership.
So they hid it.
Aggressively. They engaged in what they called a splendid deception. There are almost no photos of him in a wheelchair.
I've never seen one.
When he spoke at a podium, he would grip the sides until his knuckles turned white just to hold himself up. He wore heavy steel braces on his legs, locked at the knee.
And to walk, he had to swing his hips using his torso muscles.
It was agonizingly painful and exhausting.
But he did it. He forced himself to smile through the pain.
And that suffering, well, it did something to his character. It humbled him. It gave him a deep, visceral empathy.
So even though he was rich,
Even though he was rich, he knew what it meant to be helpless. He knew what it meant to have your body or your economy fail you through no fault of your own.
that's the connection. When he spoke to those people on the street we imagined earlier, they didn't see a rich guy.
No,
They heard a guy who had been through hell and came back fighting.
exactly. So we get to the 1932 election, and the result,
It wasn't even close. It was a demolition.
a landslide. FDR won 42 out of the 48 states.
42 out of 48. That is a massive scream from the voters. We call that a mandate.
It was a mandate for action. He promised a new deal for the American people.
But what was the plan?
Now, here's the funny thing, and this is a great insight into politics. He didn't actually have a specific plan written down.
He was winging it.
Pretty much. The New Deal wasn't a binder full of policies. It was a slogan. It was a promise of experimentation.
I love the analogy that historians often use here. Hoover was like a doctor.
Right. He's standing over a patient with pneumonia saying, "It's just a cold. Nature will take its course. You'll be fine."
And FDR.
FDR was the doctor saying, "Okay, this is critical. We are going to try medicine A. If that doesn't work, we'll try medicine B. If that fails, we'll try surgery. But we are going to do something."
That bias for action, that willingness to try anything, was exactly what the country was craving.
Absolutely. So FDR takes office.
Mhm.
He brings in his brain trust, all these professors and experts, and he gets to work.
And this brings us to the first New Deal. This covers roughly 1933 to 1934. And the strategy here can be summed up in 3 words.
The 3 R's.
Okay, mental bookmark time for the listeners. The 3 R's.
Yeah.
This is the framework for everything that follows. What are they?
Relief, recovery, and reform.
Let's break those down because they sound similar, but they do very different things.
Right. Relief is immediate. It's the ambulance rushing to the scene. People are hungry now. They're losing their homes now.
So it's about stopping the bleeding.
Exactly. Relief isn't about fixing the economy long term. It's about direct cash, food, simple jobs.
Okay. What about recovery?
Recovery is about getting the patient out of the hospital bed. It's about restarting the engine.
Getting factories open again.
Getting factories open, getting prices back up to normal levels, getting the flow of commerce moving.
And finally, reform.
Reform is the long-term fix. It's changing the laws and the rules of the game so that a depression this bad never happens again. It's systemic change.
Got it. Relief. Stop the pain. Recovery. Get well. Reform. Prevent future illness.
Perfect. So FDR enters office in March 1933, and he hits the ground running.
We call this period the first 100 days.
It is legendary in American politics.
And-
Presidents today are still judged by their first 100 days because of FDR.
It's the standard.
It is. In just 3 months, he pushed Congress to pass 15 major pieces of legislation. It was a whirlwind.
And the first dragon he had to slay was the banking crisis. Like I said in the intro, banks were collapsing. But explain the mechanics of a bank run for us. Why were people pulling their money out?
It's a crisis of trust. Banks don't keep all your money in the vault. They lend it out. That's how they make money.
So they don't have everyone's cash on hand.
Exactly. So if everyone shows up on the same day asking for their cash, the bank physically doesn't have it.
And when one person hears a rumor the bank is in trouble, they run to get their money. Then their neighbor sees them running, so they run.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, a chain reaction of panic.
And that was happening everywhere.
Everywhere. By March 1933, the entire banking system was moments away from total implosion. So the day after he takes office, FDR declares a bank holiday.
Which sounds like a nice vacation, but it wasn't.
No, not at all. He ordered every bank in the country to close. Then he sent in government inspectors.
What were they looking for?
They looked at the books. If a bank was healthy, it was allowed to reopen. If it was insolvent or, broke, it stayed closed.
This was a huge gamble. Closing the banks could have caused even more panic.
It could have. People could have rioted. But this is where FDR's superpower came in.
The fireside chat.
Yes.
Yes.
We have to talk about his voice again. He goes on the radio, and he doesn't talk like a politician giving a speech to a stadium.
No, it's different.
He talks like a friend sitting in your living room. He explained, very simply, how banking works.
He didn't talk down to people.
He treated the audience like adults. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, "It is safer to keep your money in a reopened bank than under the mattress."
And the amazing thing is, it worked. When the banks reopened, the lines weren't people taking money out.
They were people putting money back in.
That is the power of leadership. He restored confidence, essentially, through sheer force of personality.
But he didn't just reopen them, he reformed them. This is where we get the FDIC.
The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, this is a classic example of that third R reform.
Yes. The government basically said, we guarantee your money. If you put your money in this bank and the bank goes bust, the federal government will write you a check.
That is huge. Before this, if the bank lost your money, it was just gone.
Poof. Life savings evaporated.
Wow.
Exactly. And the FDIC is still the bedrock of our banking system today. If you walk into a bank tomorrow, look at the door, you'll see that little gold sticker. Member FDIC.
And that sticker stopped the panic permanently.
It really did.
So the banks are stabilized, but now he has to tackle the millions of unemployed. And this is where we get into the infamous alphabet soup of agencies.
Oh, yeah. There were so many acronyms. CCC, AAA, NRA, TVA. People made jokes that if you had a bowl of alphabet soup, you might accidentally swallow a government bureau.
Let's start with the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps. This one is fascinating because it feels almost militaristic.
It was. The CCC was targeted specifically at young men, ages 18 to 25.
Why them?
These were the guys standing on street corners, angry, broke, with no future. FDR was genuinely worried about a revolution.
He was.
He thought if these young men stayed idle, they might turn to radical politics, communism or fascism.
So what did the government do?
They shipped them out to the woods. Literally. They lived in camps, wore uniforms, ate in mess halls, and answered to officers.
And they worked.
Hard labor. They planted nearly 3 billion trees. They built flood barriers, state parks, hiking trails.
So if you've ever been hiking,
If you've ever hiked in a state park in the U.S., you've probably walked on a trail built by the CCC.
I read a detail about their pay that I found really interesting. They were paid $30 a month.
Which wasn't a lot, even then. But here's the catch.
Is that catch?
They were required, mandatory, to send $25 of that directly home to their families. They only kept $5 for themselves.
That's brilliant design. It was relief for the young men, keeping them fed and busy, but it was also a stealth way to pump money into the families back in the cities.
It was incredibly popular. It built character, it improved the environment, and it fed families. It was a win-win-win.
Okay, so that's the CCC. Now let's look at the AAA, the Agricultural Adjustment Act. This is where things get messy.
This is one of the most controversial parts of the New Deal, and for good reason.
So the problem for farmers wasn't that they couldn't grow food. It was that they were growing too much.
Right. During World War I, American farmers ramped up production to feed Europe. After the war, they just kept producing at that high level.
But the demand wasn't there anymore.
Demand dropped. So, basic economics. High supply plus low demand equals crashing prices.
So corn and wheat were worthless.
Exactly. So the AAA tried to artificially raise prices by lowering the supply.
Oh.
The government actually paid farmers not to plant crops. They paid them to leave fields fallow.
And this is where the pig story comes in.
Yes. To lower the supply of pork, the government oversaw the slaughter of 6 million pigs. 6
million.
Pause on that for a second. Imagine being a hungry American in 1933. You are standing in a bread line. You are starving.
And you pick up a newspaper.
And you read that the government is killing millions of pigs and throwing them away just to raise the price of bacon.
It seemed absolutely insane to people. It was the paradox of want amidst plenty.
So what was the logic? Here's the cold, hard economic logic. If farm prices didn't go up, the farmers would all go bankrupt, and then nobody would be growing food.
It's a ruthless calculus. Did it work?
Economically, yes, farm prices stabilized, farmers could finally pay their mortgages. But ethically, it was a hard pill to swallow.
Definitely. Then we have industry, the NRA, the National Recovery Administration.
If you were alive then, you would have seen the NRA symbol everywhere. The blue eagle. It was in shop windows, on packages, on movie posters.
We do our part.
Right. The goal here was to end cutthroat competition. The government basically suspended antitrust laws.
What does that mean?
They brought businesses and labor unions together to set prices, set production limits, and establish minimum wages. They even banned child labor, which was a huge step forward.
But wait, this sounds like the government is centrally planning the economy.
It was. It was very close to a planned economy, and the critics went crazy.
I bet.
They said this was un-American, they said it was interfering with the free market, and as we'll see later, the Supreme Court agreed with them.
One more agency before we move on, the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority. This wasn't just policy, this was concrete and steel.
Massive concrete. The Tennessee Valley covers 7 states in the South. In the 30s, it was one of the poorest, most underdeveloped places in the Western world.
How so?
Many people there lived like it was the 1800s. No electricity, constant flooding, malaria. It was really bad.
So the government steps in and acts like a developer?
A huge developer. They built a massive system of dams. These dams controlled floods, which saved lives, but more importantly, they generated hydroelectric power.
Cheap electricity for everyone.
It modernized the entire region almost overnight. But again, look at the philosophical shift.
Right.
The government is now producing and selling electricity, competing directly with private power companies. It's the government literally building the infrastructure of daily life.
So that's the first New Deal. Fast, furious, throw everything at the wall action. But by 1935, the tone changes.
It does.
We enter the second New Deal.
Right. The first New Deal was about stopping the bleeding, about emergency measures. The second New Deal, starting around 1935, shifted the focus to long-term economic security.
This is where the New Deal gets its soul.
I like that, yes. This is about building a more permanent, more just society.
And the biggest program here, maybe the most visible one, was the WPA, the Works Progress Administration. How is this different from the CCC?
The CCC was for young guys in the woods. The WPA was for everyone, and it was everywhere.
How big was it?
It employed about 3 million people a year. They built schools, airports, hospitals. If you drive over a bridge built in the 1930s, chances are the WPA built it.
But it wasn't just construction workers, right? This is the part I love.
No, not at all. They hired weird people.
They hired artists.
They did. FDR believed that artists have to eat like other people. So the WPA hired painters to paint murals in post offices. They hired actors to put on free plays. They hired writers to create travel guides.
This is actually how we have so much documentation of the era.
Exactly. They hired photographers like Dorothea Lange to go out and document the Depression. You know that famous photo of the migrant mother?
Oh, of course. The woman looking worried with her children huddled around her.
That is the image of the Great Depression. I can see it in my head right now.
Wow.
That was a government-funded photograph. The WPA essentially created the visual memory of America.
Incredible. But the crown jewel of the Second New Deal, the one that arguably changed American society the most, was the Social Security Act.
This is the big one. This changes everything. Before 1935, America was a frightening place to grow old.
What do you mean?
If you retired and didn't have savings and didn't have family to take care of you, you were destitute. You were on the street or in the poorhouse. There was no system.
So what did Social Security actually do?
It created a safety net. That's the vocabulary word to remember. Safety net.
A safety net.
It provided a pension for the elderly, paid for by a payroll tax on workers. But it was more than that. It also provided unemployment insurance if you lost your job, and aid to the disabled.
It fundamentally changed the definition of freedom in America, didn't it?
It did. This is a crucial insight. Before this, freedom usually meant negative liberty. Freedom from government interference. The government leaves me alone.
But FDR was pushing for positive liberty.
Exactly. Freedom now meant security. Freedom from fear. Freedom from want. The idea was that you can't be free if you are starving to death.
So the government now had a permanent responsibility for your welfare.
That is a massive philosophical shift. It's still debated today.
And speaking of power shifts, we also have to mention the Wagner Act.
Yes, this gave workers the legal right to form unions and bargain collectively. It put the force of the federal government behind the unions.
And this led to some intense moments. I want to talk about the sit-down strikes.
The General Motors plant in Flint, Michigan, 1936. This is fascinating. Usually when workers went on strike, they would walk out of the factory.
Right. And then what would the owners do?
They'd hire scabs replacement workers and keep running. The strike would lose its power. So the workers at GM got smart. They realized if we leave, they replace us. So let's not leave.
They sat down.
They sat down next to the machines, they occupied the factory, they slept on the car seats.
So the owners couldn't bring in new workers.
Because the old workers were physically sitting on the assembly line.
It was a siege.
It was. The police tried to storm the plant, but the workers fought them off with fire hoses and car door hinges. And because of the Wagner Act, FDR refused to send in the army to break the strike.
And they won.
They won. GM caved, union membership skyrocketed. It gave workers a seat at the table they never had before.
So FDR is completely reshaping America. But you can't make changes this big without making some enemies.
Oh, he had plenty.
And FDR had plenty. Let's talk about the opposition.
Oh, he was hated as much as he was loved. Let's start with the right and the conservatives.
What was their main argument?
They thought the New Deal was the end of America as we knew it. They looked at all these regulations, all this government spending, and they used one word: socialism.
There's a famous political cartoon from the time. It shows FDR playing cards, a new deal of cards.
I know that one.
But he's trying to slip a card onto the table, and the card is the Joker. And the Joker is labeled socialist experiments.
Right. They argued that the New Deal was killing American individualism. They were also terrified of the national debt.
All that spending had to be paid for.
The government was borrowing billions to pay for all this. They thought FDR was becoming a dictator, a red, in the White House.
And there was one group of people who had the power to actually stop him.
The Supreme Court.
The 9 old men.
The Supreme Court was very conservative at this time. And they started looking at these laws, the NRA, the AAA, and saying, wait a minute.
Wait a minute, what?
The Constitution doesn't give the president the power to regulate a chicken farm in Brooklyn.
That was the famous sick chicken case.
The Schechter poultry case, yes. The Supreme Court ruled that the NRA was unconstitutional because it gave the president too much legislative power. They struck it down. Then they struck down the AAA.
So FDR's whole program is being dismantled by these 9 judges in black robes.
He must have been furious.
He was apoplectic, and this led to his biggest political mistake, the court packing plan.
This sounds like something out of a drama series. What was the plan?
Well, FDR proposed a law that said for every judge over the age of 70 who didn't retire, the president could appoint a new, younger judge to help them out.
Help him out.
Right.
But the real reason was?
He wanted to flood the court with judges who liked the New Deal. He wanted to change the referee because he didn't like the calls.
That is a bold move. How did the public react?
They hated it. Even people who loved FDR thought this was a power grab.
It looked bad.
It looked like he was trying to break the system of checks and balances. Congress rejected it. It was his first big humiliating defeat.
He kind of won in the end, didn't he?
He did. It's called the switch in time that saved 9. The court got the message. They were scared. So suddenly, one of the swing voters shifted and started upholding the New Deal laws. And eventually, the old judges retired, and FDR got to appoint new ones anyway.
He lost the battle, but won the war.
Exactly. Now, we have to talk about another criticism, and this one is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's not about who the New Deal helped, but who it left out.
This is a very important corrective to the heroic narrative of the New Deal. The New Deal relied on the support of Southern Democrats.
And to get that support,
He needed their votes to pass his laws. And the Southern Democrats were segregationists.
hardline segregationists.
So when they wrote the laws for Social Security and the Wagner Act, the Southern politicians demanded a carve-out.
A loophole.
A huge one. They insisted that agricultural workers and domestic servants be excluded from the benefits.
And who held most of those jobs in the South?
African Americans,
Eh.
maids, housekeepers, sharecroppers.
So by excluding those specific job titles,
They effectively cut nearly 65% of Black African Americans out of the Social Security safety net.
so it created a 2-tiered system. White industrial workers got the protection, black agricultural and domestic workers did not.
Exactly. It was a new deal, but it wasn't a fair deal for everyone. It baked inequality into the system.
That is a crucial nuance.
Yeah.
Okay, we're coming into the home stretch. We need to talk hard numbers.
The big question.
Did all of this effort, all this spending, actually end the Great Depression?
The short answer is no.
No, after all that.
The New Deal did not end the Great Depression. Let's look at the data. In 1933, unemployment was at 25%.
The peak.
By 1940, after 7 years of the New Deal, it was still around 15%.
15% is better than 25%, but...
But 15% is still a depression. If unemployment was 15% today, the country would be in chaos.
And there was actually a moment where it got worse again, right? In 37?
Yes, the Roosevelt recession of 1937. FDR decided the economy was healthy enough that he could cut back on spending.
He tried to balance the budget.
Exactly. He slashed funding for the WPA. He took his foot off the gas.
And what happened?
The economy tanked immediately. Unemployment shot right back up.
This essentially proved the theory of Keynesian economics, didn't it?
Exactly. John Maynard Keynes was a British economist, and he's the intellectual godfather of this era.
And his theory was priming the pump.
I love that metaphor. Explain it.
Think of an old-fashioned hand water pump on a farm. If the well is dry, you can pump the handle all day and get nothing.
Right, just air.
You have to pour a little water in, you have to prime it to get the pressure back so the water flows out.
So the government has to pour money in to get the economy flowing.
Right. Keynes said that in a depression, consumers stop spending because they are scared. Businesses stop spending because there are no customers.
It's a death spiral.
And the only entity big enough to break the cycle is the government. They have to spend money, even borrowed money, to create demand.
And when FDR stopped pumping in 1937, the water stopped flowing.
It proved the theory. So if the New Deal didn't end the Depression, what finally did?
World War II.
It's a grim irony.
It is. When the war started, the U.S. became the arsenal of democracy. We needed tanks, planes, ships, bullets.
So government spending went through the roof.
The government started spending massive amounts of money, far, far more than the New Deal ever did.
Factories ran 24 hours a day.
Everyone got a job. If you weren't fighting, you were building. Unemployment went down to basically zero. The war machine just soaked up all the unemployment.
So the war cured the economy, but does that mean the New Deal was a failure?
No. I think the best way to look at it is this. The New Deal was life support.
Life support.
It kept the patient alive. It prevented the country from collapsing into revolution or anarchy until the cure of the war economy arrived.
And it left us with a totally different country.
A transformed country.
Yeah.
FDR himself led the nation through the Depression and most of the war. He was elected 4 times.
Unprecedented.
That's something that is illegal now. But by 1945, he was exhausted.
He died in April 1945, just months before the war ended. He never saw the final victory.
There is a story about his funeral train that I think sums up his legacy perfectly.
I know the one. The train was carrying his body back to Washington from Georgia.
And thousands of Americans lined the train tracks just to watch it pass. They were weeping.
Just standing there in silence.
And a reporter saw a man sobbing on the side of the tracks and asked him, "Did you know the president?"
And the man said,
He said, "I didn't know him, but he knew me."
That gives me chills. It really captures that connection, that feeling that for the first time, the government actually saw the common man.
Exactly. He made people feel that they mattered to the state, that someone in power was on their side.
Okay, let's bring this in for a landing. This has been a lot of information. Let's recap the big takeaways.
Let's boil it down.
First, the shift in philosophy. We went from Hoover's classical liberalism
Crooked should stay out.
to FDR's modern liberalism.
The government has a duty to help, a responsibility.
Second, the strategy. Remember the 3 R's?
Relief, immediate help like the CCC. Recovery, fixing the economy like the AAA and NRA. And reform.
And reform was changing the rules, like the FDIC and Social Security.
Exactly.
The long-term stuff.
And finally, the result. It didn't fully solve the economic depression,
The war did that.
but it built the modern welfare state.
Right. If you have a grandparent on Social Security, or if your bank account is insured, or if you get paid a minimum wage, you are living in the world FDR built.
All right, before we sign off, let's do a quick check your understanding. I'm going to throw out 3 questions based on what we discussed.
Let's do it.
See if you can answer them in your head.
Question 1. What was the main purpose of the bank holiday and the creation of the FDIC?
Think about the panic. The answer is, To stop the bank runs and restore people's psychological trust in the banking system.
Perfect. Question 2. Why was the Agricultural Adjustment Act, the AAA, so controversial?
Remember the pigs? The answer is because the government was paying farmers to destroy food to raise prices, while many Americans were literally starving. Exactly. And question 3. How did the definition of liberty or freedom change under the New Deal?
This is the big philosophical one. The answer is it shifted from freedom from government, being left alone, to security provided by government safety nets.
If you got those 3, you have mastered the basics of the New Deal.
I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. We live in a world of crises today, too. We see economic shifts, pandemics, uncertainty.
And the government responds.
When you look at how our government responds today, sending out stimulus checks, bailing out airlines, managing interest rates, that is the shadow of the New Deal.
We are still having the same argument FDR started in 1933. How much government is too much? At what point does helping people turn into controlling people?
Are we protecting the vulnerable, or are we drifting toward that socialism the critics warned about?
It's the eternal American question.
Thanks for diving in with us today.
See you next time.